All right, we are live. Hello, everybody who's joining here. My name is Kyle, and I'm the Interpreter 1 at Prairie Creek Redwood State Park. Today we are at Prairie Creek Redwood State Park. We've got a controlled burn going on in our field. I'm going to turn the camera around in just a moment to let you see some of the amazing things going on there. Controlled burn over Elk Prairie at Prairie Creek Redwood State Park. And we've got a really special guest with us to tell us about what they're doing out here. We got Lathrop Leonard, I'll let him introduce himself, but he's got a big role to play with this controlled burn. And we'll wait just a second for the fire truck to go past. All right, for those of you who have stayed tuned until this point, here you are. We've got this beautiful controlled burn going on here at Elk Prairie. And again with us today we have Lathrop Leonard. And Lathrop, why don't you go ahead and tell us what it is you do?
Well, hi Kyle, hi everybody. Yeah, my name is Lathrop Leonard. I'm the forester for this district of California State Parks. And yeah, I do have a couple of different roles within the park. I do a lot of forest restoration, which is taking old clear cuts that we purchased from timber companies years ago and trying to restore that land to build healthy forests and to get back old growth conditions to those degraded lands. But my other hat that I'm wearing today is I'm the burn boss for the district. So I'm in charge of writing prescribed burn plans and getting fire on the ground to help these habitats out. Now, as a lot of you know, fire is kind of a natural process, a natural part of these areas, and so we're trying to return that type of condition, or that type of disturbance, if you will, to the land. Now, the Yurok tribe, they have been managing this land since time immemorial, and they were burning these prairies, and so in a lot of ways we're just trying to pick up where they left off. They kind of, lost their ability to manage these lands as they had been doing over 100 years ago, and then fire, just kind of went away from this area for a long time, and we actively suppressed it, or the country did. And starting in about the mid-'80s, Redwood National and State Parks reintroduced fire to this prairie, and we've been burning it regularly ever since. Our main objectives out here are to get rid of or reduce woody vegetation. If you let these prairies go, I'm about to catch on fire. Put a little bit of this out here so I don't get a little extra heat. Fortunately, when it's little like this, we've mowed this area already, so it's fairly easy to stomp this out. We're right on the edge of one of our control lines here. Anyway, this woody vegetation, not only blackberries and other hazel and other plants that grow in this area, but also conifers, including redwoods and Douglas firs, have a way of moving into these prairies if we don't burn them. And once they get established, they're really hard to get rid of. So we use chainsaws and other materials to help get that stuff out of the way. But really the preferred tool is the drip torch, and use prescribed fire. And that's what we're doing here today.
That's excellent. And can you tell us a little bit, Lathrop, about who's all out here today? Who's involved with this controlled burn?
Well, it really is a big partnership. It takes a lot of people, a lot of manpower, a lot of resources to pull it off. So we're partnering with CAL FIRE, our sister agency, who's really in charge of putting out wildfires on state park lands. But they also have all the equipment to help us put fire on the ground under our terms. But we also have Redwood National Park is out here with us today, as well as some members of the Yurok tribe. We kind of reach out as far as we can to get people who are interested in burning and help people get experience doing this kind of thing, so we can put more fire on the ground in the future. I like to think of it as, wherever most of us live, fire is coming. So by putting fire on the ground, we can do it on our terms rather than wait for fire to come to our area on nature's terms. We pick a time of year when it's much easier to control these burns and to keep them from going where we're not ready to handle them. And so that's what you're seeing today. Again, we're on the edge of the burn here, and the fire is fizzling it out on its own. But all these people that you see in the background are helping us not only put fire on the ground, but keeping it from getting outside of the box.
Absolutely. Well, I think you kind of covered a lot of my questions there with your very nice answer, and I just want to put it out to the public. If y'all have any questions too, feel free to type them in the chat. I'm monitoring it here. But I'm just curious, it seems like such a there's ups and downs to it. There seems like there's some things that's really cool about being involved and some things that are maybe not so much fun. Can you tell us first about one of the things you maybe like the least about being involved with this kind of work, and then one of the things you like the most about this kind of work?
Sure. Well, one of the hardest things is that, you know, you do a lot. There's so much planning involved, just the logistics of getting all these people out here, checking the weather to make sure you have the right conditions to burn, the number of people, equipment, and everything else in order to pull it off. And sometimes you put all that work together and then something goes wrong and you're not able to burn. And so when you put all that work into it just to tell everybody to go home, that's pretty frustrating. And it happens, whether it's because the weather's horrible and it's going to make it unsafe to burn, or that it started to rain and you're not going to be able to achieve your objectives with the burn. We've had all sorts of things like that messes up in the past. So that's probably the most frustrating part, when you're not able to do a thing. Probably the most satisfying part is I suppose really the successful burns when you're done. The other thing is we come out here a lot and burn, and sometimes the burn, it was, the conditions were good enough that we decided to go ahead and burn it, but we didn't really kill as much of the woody vegetation as we wanted to, or that kind of thing, and that's a little bit frustrating. But then other times we come out here and burn the same area, conditions are slightly different, and you're really able to see that's always a really good feeling to see.
Sorry about that, folks. We just got a phone call right in the middle of that.
We're also about to catch a truck tire on fire, so I'm going to come over here.
Some action for you all. We've got live fire getting put out.
Little tire fire. We don't want to catch any rigs on fire. I think you're okay now.
It's still a little smoldery right on the tire there. On the front of it, yeah. Beautiful.
You see how we mowed the edge of the grass here, so it is pretty easy to put out. Of course, that's not the case with all of our burns, but that's part of what control lines are for, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we did get a question from our public here. This is one of our state parks folks, Steve Yahelka, is asking, how frequently do you prescribe a burn for this prairie?
Oh, well, that's a great question. So, as best as we can tell, probably every 2, 3, or 4 years, the Native Americans used to burn this. That's somewhat of an estimate, but around the frequency that they found sufficient. And it's kind of been spotty over the years, depending on manpower and personnel and all those things. I'd say, we used to try to do it every other year, and part of the reason is that there's so many years that we are not able to burn because it starts raining before we have enough personnel on fire. We're on as you know, at the very northwest corner of the state of California, right? So it's the wettest part of the state, and it's the part that the prescribed burn season starts earlier than anywhere else. And so a lot of times when it's ideal time to burn this prairie here, Southern California or Central California have all kind of wildfires going on, just like they do this year, right? And so sometimes we just can't afford the people to come here and do this because they have to be on call, ready to respond to protect people's houses and other resources. So, we're always thinking of safety first, not only of the people that are working the prescribed burn, but other people, the public in general, and their values and their property. So we wouldn't want to commit people to this burn if they're needed for a wildfire somewhere else. So because of that, we've we try to burn it more often than it used to be, because we know a lot of years we're going to get shut down for some reason. Or the other thing is, we're kind of behind schedule in a lot of ways. Like this area went 100 years without burning, so we've got to kind of make up for some of that. We've still got woody vegetation in here that was not here historically, and so and some of that woody vegetation grows back from the stump. So even though you top kill it with the fire, it comes back. So again, if we can burn a little more frequently, I hope we can get rid of some of that vegetation permanently and then get back to more of a every 3 or 4 year cycle.
Excellent.
Now that it depends again on the burn. That's for this burn here in particular. But if we're looking at more of a forest type burn, like in the redwoods, you know, we might burn every 10 or 15 years. So it all depends on what we're burning and what our objectives are. But we kind of try to mimic what was done historically, because that's generally what those ecosystems are most adapted to. So we're trying to mimic what builds resilience and what has allowed these ecosystems to thrive in the past.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you so much for your thoughtful responses here, Lathrop, to our questions, and for showing us a little bit about what you do. Is there anything else you'd like to add for folks, just as some final thoughts here?
No, other than, again, like I said, you know, keeping in mind that fire is coming to most places on the landscape. I hope that people can try to be patient with us. I know a lot of times it's frustrating to have smoke where you are because somebody's conducting a prescribed burn. And we are certainly very aware of trying to make sure the weather conditions not only allow for a safe burn, but allow for the smoke to dissipate and not bother our neighbors. Sometimes, though, you know, things don't go quite as planned, and it's annoying for people. So, sorry if that's happened to you. Have patience with us. And again, if you're not watching this live and you want to ask some questions after the fact, I know Kyle and I are both pretty good at looking back on these occasionally and answering questions. So we love to get questions. It keeps us on our toes and makes sure we're, sometimes it gets us to think outside of the box a little bit.
I like it. We did get one last question trickling in while you had that.
Sure.
If you don't mind taking it, how long does it take to plan an ignition?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, so I'd say, you know, we're usually starting months in advance to get kind of a general plan to keep everybody aware of what's going on. And then for this unit, it took us a crew of about 15 people, 3 days to do all the preparations as far as digging hand lines, mowing things, that kind of stuff. And then several days, you know, I usually spend a couple of days on the phone, talking to people, coordinating, making sure everybody can show up, getting our air quality permits, all those little pieces to make things like filling all the drip torch.
Sorry, folks, we just lost our connection for just a moment there, but just lots of folks involved. We got most of your answer there, Lathrop.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Just missed that last little bit, just that we have so many people involved in this planning, so it's not just work on one person. And again, just want to thank you so much for your time here. I'm going to take our folks just on a walk back through and show them some of the other work that's going on here, but I think we want to thank you so much for your interview, and we'll continue monitoring these comments as they come in.
Great, thank you all.
Of course. Thank you again, Lathrop. And those of you folks who are still hanging out with us, I'm just going to take you a little walk back over here towards where our reception is coming from, so you can take a look at some of the field that's already been done. So most of the work here on this side has already been complete. We've got a couple of our crews still working. And then a little bit further down the prairie, that's where they're still working on the burns. You can see all the smoke coming from the active fire versus this area, which has mostly been burned and blackened here. I saw we also got a question about what's making that popping or shot kind of sound. And that is a flare gun that they're using to shoot flares out into the middle of the field to keep that fire going. Would you mind showing us what you got for flares right there?
I gotta wait for firing to get down here.
Gotcha.
Get some more rounds, and we'll be good.
Excellent. So,
I'll hook you up as we get in.
spectacular.
Hey, crew 4, let's go!
How's it going, folks? So you see this is a big joint work here. We've got all kinds of agencies. Lathrop mentioned a little bit of all these different groups that are involved in this work. So we just want to say a huge thank you to all of our partners who are involved with this. All these folks who are out here working hard. It's pretty warm out here today, so being out in these full flame retardant suits out in the fire in the middle of the field, as much as it looks cool, I can imagine it's not the most enjoyable experience. So big shout out to all these folks who are working hard to make sure to us from these fires and make sure these controlled burns are happening in a safe way. Thank you. And I want to thank all of you so much for joining here today. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up there. It's going to take a little while for them to get those flares prepped again. We're going to be working on some more fire videos and things like that, so be sure to stay tuned as we're talking about the importance of these controlled burns, especially. If you do have any additional questions, feel free to pop those down into the chat, but we're going to go ahead and wrap it up there for today. Again, I want to thank you all so much for joining us here at Prairie Creek Redwood State Park. Stay tuned for all things talking about the amazing things happening in our park right here on the North Coast Redwoods page. We will see you all next time. Thanks so much.